Hi, and welcome to Magic Numbers. This is episode number 138, and today we are doing a set review. But no, we're not going to foundations. Nuh-uh, that's not our style. Although my guest did a foundation review yesterday, so probably you should go and check it at some stage later. But we are doing the review of Duskmourn, the set that's been released 2 months ago. But our set review is slightly different. We go back to the review that we did before the set was released. We look at our grades through the lens of 17 lens data, uh, adjust it to better grades so that everyone understands what we're talking about, and then see how badly we missed or how well did we hit. And I said, as my guest did the review just yesterday, and my guest is as well, usually now and now, because I think we're doing it now for the sixth time, maybe. So I know exactly where we're going to stumble in advance. Is Corticals, Alex Nikolic. Welcome.
Hi, how's it going? Welcome, everybody listening and watching. I am glad to be back. These are always a lot of fun. I look forward to them as kind of, an easy way to ease into the next format, say goodbye to the one we just had. And it was a really good one. We were just talking before this started. Duskmourn was great. I really like this format.
Yeah, there were some definite banger cards, like the one that I have in the cover here.
Yes, indeed.
All of the things that tried to reminisce of the old school creatures, but being Manifest Dread were so good.
Yeah, the Man
I
of
mean,
War,
Under the
Eternal
Skin,
Witness.
Manowar, Solemn Simulacrum in the form of threats around every corner.
Oh yeah, I didn't
Sort
even
of.
make that comparison. Yeah, that's a good. I mean, I made that comparison, but I didn't realize that's what they were doing with these like uncommon manifest cards, like callbacks to iconic cards.
I think that they were. I mean, I don't have that good contact with set designers, surprisingly, but I guess that's what they tried to do, to bring this kind of feeling of old school Magic in the new shell, and proving that those cards are still bangers.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And of course, thanks to my patrons who are supporting me through the tough job of content creation. And thanks to mtgazone.com, and thanks to many people that are helping me with my content creation. Let's move on with that because I want to focus on my guest. And I'm in the wrong window, obviously. And my guest is a very special guest because he's a man of multiple talents and master of all of them.
Well, thanks.
I mean, honestly, Alex, I spent enough hours on your stream and I spent enough months on your stream that you know that I'm not there just for pretense. I'm there because I actually enjoy sitting through your streams. They are like probably, apart from coaching that you also provide, apart from coaching, this is the best way of learning how to play limited from a true master of the game. You're a podcaster with limited level ups. Again, think that is always on my rotation. It's a must listen podcast. I We don't plan anything like that, but very often my episodes and your episodes are very complementary towards each other. So listening them back to back gives you the data perspective on the topic and then a pundit perspective on the topic, and they are all perfectly complementing each other. So I highly recommend listening to you. Obviously, a limited guru, good person, and I know because you visited me, so I tested you rigorously for 2 days. Still a
That's the
good person.
benchmark. Yeah.
That's the, guests are like fish. One day fine, 2 day can be problematic. Also, you're basically a pro now with back-to-back top 16s in the big Vegas tournament.
Yeah, if that adds up to being a pro, then I'll take it. I'll take the compliment. Yeah, but it did have a pretty good. I was talking about how much I like Duskmourn, and doing well in the Vegas tournament did not harm my opinion of it. That's for sure.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not super keen on the sealed from that format. But if you're good, a medium, upper middle class sealed pool is going to be good enough for you. If you're not
Yeah.
good, you need to open a busted one. That's obviously, even with your skills, if you open a complete clunker with the 15 ley lines, that might be a problem.
Yeah, I was telling people throughout the day on day one, basically the pool that I opened was just good enough, I think, to make it to day two with some luck and some good play, and I did get there. So,
Okay, So what are we doing here today, Alex? Can you explain to me what are we doing?
Absolutely. So, whereas we both did some preset evaluations, grading cards before Duskmourn came out, we always like to go back and look at what we were wrong about, what we were right about, maybe predict some trends, Sirkovitz. I've submitted my playing the set grades Sirkovitz. He's done some analysis here, so we're going to be looking at how much we got right, how much we got wrong. But before that, we're going to do a little bit of a format breakdown, at least talking about the format a little bit with a crack-a-pack.
Yes, we do have a cracker pack.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, you're the guest, you're the expert. I want you to, I'm going to talk about the cards and you're going to tell me what you think about them.
Yeah, for sure.
And first card, and I want to maybe start with the whole category of those cards, is Etched Cornfield, the white-green dual land.
Yep. Yeah, so the dual lands that we see in 50% of packs, I believe, they are. It's
That is
interesting
correct.
because I always think it's tough to really nail down advice of when you should take a land to people, because when I'm streaming, out of maybe kind of a weakish, not amazing, but still fine cards in the pack early on, people will maybe say like, oh, maybe speculate on a dual land. And I don't think it's ever a bad idea, but a lot of times they go, I like the spell a little bit better. But then later on, it'll be kind of the opposite, where it's like, oh, I like taking the land here over this kind of mediocre spell. It's like, well, where do you take them? Well, I think where it's come down for me is, if the card in the pack, the spell, I should say, that you might want to take, and you're comparing that to a land, well, kind of ask yourself, like, am I gonna miss this card at the end of the draft? Like, if my blue-white deck is missing a fear of surveillance, for example, the 2-drop that surveils when it attacks and has vigilance. I mean, I will if I'm missing out on 2-drop creatures, but if my draft's gone in a way where I already have a lot of 2s, so they're better than fear, yeah, sure, I might speculate on a land. And let's just to kind of bring it back to where I like the lands, or like how much I like them. I guess I play in this format I would say probably 2.3 colors on average, which is to say most of the time I'm a 2-color deck, but in a good handful of decks I do splash, and speculating on these lands lets you splash down the road.
Wow, that's amazing because that's exactly my take on those lands. I usually, so first of all, I think that this format is much better for basic land fixing because you got the centipede, you got the threats around every corner, and you got the terramorphic expanse.
Yep.
And sometimes, those lands can be clunky if you're splashing with the basics.
For sure.
And the tap part is also, a setback in some stages. So I like to have them, but I don't want to pay a cost in having them. That's basically my approach to drafting those lands. Like,
yeah.
And again, I will look at the missing function in my deck because I think that this format, more than any other format, requires you to fill all the gaps in the functions in the deck. Otherwise, you're going to have problems because commons are not powerful, so you cannot just go with the strategy. Oh, I'm just going to put a lot of early drops and they will carry me somehow because I have like 1 or 2 bombs and there's a gap in functionality. I think that these decks in Duskmourn, they need to be sort of mechanistically completed in a way that if you're playing blue something, you need the card draw, you need the cheap interaction, you need the early drops, and you need something for the top end / powerful bomb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. There's definitely a risk of taking too many lands and then not ending up with enough spells that fill certain roles that you need.
Okay, well, I guess you wouldn't want to first pick it.
Yeah, I would not be happy first picking a land. Like, if this was an Evolving Wilds, I wouldn't be devastated, but I don't want to be first picking a actual dual land that only taps for 2 colors.
Okay, but then we have Bear Trap. Bear Trap, 1 mana in artifact with flash, and 3 tap, sacrifice it to deal 3 damage to target creature.
Yeah, I've played a Bear Trap or 2. Definitely not looking to first pick it, but it's not the worst if you A, need interaction, and also B, are a Delirium deck. I don't think you would really want to play it if only one of those things is true.
I wonder how good it would be if it could go face.
Yeah, probably meaningfully better. I would say probably goes from only in those situations I described, at least a little bit more.
But it's not even the best 1 mana common artifact in the set, I
It's
think.
true. It's true.
Because I actually grew so much on the
Found footage?
found footage. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
that
me
card
too.
was so good. It's like basically it's like a budget version of Say Its Name that doesn't bring Altanak, but has some other benefits of having an artifact in your graveyard.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. Manifest Dread. What does
Manifest
the
Dread.
card do?
It manifests Dread. Reading the card, reading the title explains the card. Yeah. So, Manifest Dread is a card that I went on a little bit of a roller coaster on. Not a huge one, just a little bit of one. Where I was pretty high on it early on. Just kind of thinking like this just greases so many wheels, fueling Delirium, playing well with caring about Manifest Dread cards like Oblivious Bookworm. And that's all true. That stuff is all very true. But there ended up being just like enough green decks that don't always care about those things, where I think it's a strong role player in decks that do care about those things. Like, I'm very happy about that in the 2-drop slot, but it's not just a card I'm thrilled to first pick as like, oh, this is a flexible, good 2-drop that's going to go anywhere. If you're like a green, let's say green white deck, which mind you, didn't come together too often. Or let's just say even a green. No, yeah, even green blue actually was sometimes not great for it, because you might not even had that many cards that cared about manifesting dread. You really wanted to care about the graveyard, is what I'm getting at here. So there are some decks that didn't care for it as the 2-drop. Still a good card in the deck that did.
That was my joke before the set was released, that the card is a misnomer. It says Manifest Dread, but the name of the card should be actually 75% Delirium.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
I
that's
was
what it
right.
was really good at. Right? Yeah, 70
And I
exactly.
was
75.
right.
Hey, you nailed it.
But yeah, I mean, I also like my preferred deck for it in general is red green.
Yep.
Black green, it will depend on the build.
Mm-hmm.
Blue green, for the most of the time when I played blue green, it would have been great in my deck because that's how I built blue green. But I know that there are other builds that I didn't experiment with where it's not actually going to be something phenomenal. And
Yep.
as you said, not as flexible as it seems. Okay, Ripchain Razorkin. The 4
Ripchain.
mana 5/3 reach, 3 mana sacrifice a land, draw a card.
Yeah, this is a card I saw quite a bit in my Vegas drafts, actually, from the opponents. Not because I'm sure they, they crack some secret and Razorkin is the truth, but it's the kind of card that does see a little more play in tougher pods where, this card, when you break it down, it's not a terrible card. It's not good, but it's a 4 mana, 5 power, reach, sacrifice land to draw a card. Like, it does things. It does some stuff.
It's a sort of 4 mana 4/4, the classic 4 mana 4/4 in terms of adding the stats together. I mean, I know
Right.
that 5/3 is a bit different because it dies to smaller removal and things like that, but the numbers don't lie. It adds
Yeah,
to 8.
exactly. So it's I would hope to never really play this in an arena best of 1 draft, and that speaks to the fact that your card quality generally can be better because you get better cards later. But it's also like a 20 to 23rd card and like a red X aggro deck. I think that's fine if you're playing in a slightly better pod, stronger pod. Not a card you really have to consider for your best of run arena drafts, though.
Yeah, it was a big disappointment for me, this card in Omniscience draft, because I didn't read it because I didn't play it at that stage in the normal draft, and I picked it and I thought it can sacrifice any permanent to draw a card,
Oh,
but no, only a land, and it
nope.
stood there on the board like doing nothing.
Yep.
Okay. And next card is the Black Manifest Dread in the Innocuous Rat. 2 mana 1/1, and when it dies, you manifest Dread.
I love this card. I mean, okay, when I say I love it, I don't mean like it's like
Yeah, no,
a
we know.
top
See,
common.
you love
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Just a C. Yeah, great card, fantastic. You should take it very highly. I'll give it a C. No, but I've heard some people not be fans of this card. I know my fellow podcasting limited weekly meta updates podcaster, that's just ours, because you do the same thing as I do, but our fellow podcasters Ben and Ethan over at Lords Limited, like they were not high on this card at all, and they were saying like, hey, I don't think you want to put this in your deck most of the time. I kind of felt like in all my black decks I wanted the card. Now that might have been because in my view, the key to drafting black is Final Vengeance, and just like any number, I will take any number of Final Vengeances and enough fodder to support them. And Rat is very good with Final Vengeance. So might just be a difference in where we're valuing black cards. But yeah, in the decks that I was playing it in, I valued it for sacrifice fodder, for filling the graveyard, as Manifest Dread tends to do. Just a fine thing to play to defend early. I don't know. Rat was like, Rat's a good friend of mine.
I have the same. I mean, and data does support it. I mean, Final Vengeance was the top black common in every single black color combination,
Yeah.
including Dimir. I mean, this tells you something about the card.
Yeah.
And I think apart from the Clockwork Percussionist in red black, there is no better sacrifice fodder in black. And some people may say that Fear of Lost Teeth is better. I didn't find that. I think that the fact that you're getting the 2/2 from the rat is much more impactful. Also
Yeah.
fueling some synergies at the same time, especially like I found it also great like in John decks where I had like mixture of delirium and sacrifice when you have like those mirths and you have bunch of stuff that you want to pump up with your delirium triggers and you have the rats to sacrifice the final vengeances and those decks were very strong.
Yep. Absolutely. No, I totally agree with that.
Okay, next card is sort to plushers but blue.
Yeah,
Unable
unable
to
to scream.
scream.
Yeah, this was good. Like I think they really hit the right combination of text box, mana value. This is what I would hope going forward we get from blue. I mean, you can't get it every set because it's a very, very good version of this effect. But I hope it's a template they come back to. And, we just got Witness Protection as a reprint in Foundations. And that is essentially the same card as Unable to Scream, but turns into a 1/1. And that's so much worse than an 0/2. So was a really big fan of Unable to Scream. That is, it's like as far as the Final Vengeance was important for the black decks I was just talking about. I thought this was really important for the blue control decks. Maybe not as important as Glimmer Burst. Glimmer Burst was great, but Unable to Scream right up there for me.
Yeah, in the game that Magic Data Science does before every set, where you have to guess the best cards for
Yeah.
each color. I picked both Unable to Scream and Glimmer Burst as. So I picked Glimmer Burst as my blue card and Unable to Scream as my sort of bonus card. And I was
Nice.
very happy with that choice, to be
Yeah.
fair.
I mean, you nailed it. That's exactly it.
The only knock I have against the card, it should change the type to Mime.
To mime?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Mime.
mean, we got a legitimate business person on the last
Exactly,
one,
just to
right?
follow up
So,
on the joke from the legitimate business person.
yeah,
And
that'd be great.
but and it would work better with the porcelain gallery.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, true.
Next, we have Clammy Prowler.
Yeah, this is a very similar card to the Razorkin, where it's like I did see this card multiple times in the battlefield on day 2 drafts, and actually Matt Nass, who ended up I making the top 8 and only lost once in the Swiss to a certain person. I won't name them, but Matt Nass had this card in his deck and did very, very well with a very bad card, quote unquote, very bad card in his deck, because sometimes you just need the lower tier playable. So it just speaking to the fact that even the bad cards these days, they can be decent as long as your opponent's decks aren't just like mega loaded, the best of one deck at the table. These cards can be, you shouldn't look at these as stone zeros in these tougher pods is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think that this is like something I notice more and more that in best of one disproportions you get when you get a weaker pod, especially when the power of rares is very unevenly distributed. You will get
Yeah.
some of those pods where you just draft a weak one deck and you play against someone who had a scrappy deck because they had a good pod.
Yep.
Technically a better draft experience, but then the play experience is horrible because you know you're going to lose because there's nothing you can do against like a streamlined weak one deck.
Yep, totally.
All right, a card that I think waned for me as the format progressed, Fear of Surveillance. And it waned for me also because I never saw it ever.
Me too. Yeah, I think if I had to guess, I believe I saw more like Clockwork Percussionists in my packs than Fear of Surveillances. Even though I think Clockwork Percussionist is a better card, I think people took Fear of Surveillance pretty highly. Not to say it's a bad card. I think it's a really solid one, but I think a lot of people, once Blue White was kind of the Boogeyman deck. I think a lot of people kind of saw force blue white, and a lot of the white commons you saw going a little earlier than I might have wanted to take them.
Yeah, I think that late format I was basically hard avoiding blue, not blue, but white
White,
especially.
yeah,
Because if you're
yeah.
drafting white and white blue is cut, what do you do? White red maybe? Red is always open, so that's fine. But you have very limited maneuverability, so it had to really like be a super bomb of some sort for me to convince me. Not even like Gremlin Tamer would convince me to start going into white blue. It would have to be like the 2/5 flying ghost or something.
Yeah, I think totally agree. I think that white just ended up being the least flexible of the colors. You always felt like you kind of had to be white aggro, red white or blue white, and those are good decks. But part of that, it's a double edged sword because those being good decks means you're going to be fighting for them more often.
Okay, we are done with the commons. So far, what is the pick for you?
I would be taking Unable to Scream here. I think that's just like clearly the best card, and because I think it's clearly the best one, I would also point to the next best card, which I think is more interesting, and I would take Innocuous Rat over Manifest Dread. That's maybe a little personal preference, but I've liked the black decks a lot, and I found that green can be good too, but I don't really want to get into it for commons.
Yeah, I would probably flip those. I would pick the manifest over the
Yeah,
rat,
totally fine.
but that's mainly because I first start in green and then abandon it to switch to black when I see it's open,
Yeah,
which always
that's
happens every single time,
totally
and
reasonable.
and end up with the junk pile or straight black red. Somehow black red always open. It usually best is the like pick seven mirth,
Mirth?
disturbing
Yep.
mirth as a pivot to red black, and then you
Yep.
go on.
Yep. Very common.
Okay, now let's go to the uncommons. Drag to the roots, 2 black, green, destroy target non-permanent, and with delirium it costs 2 mana less.
Yep, it's a solid card. Nothing extremely exciting. A lot of the signposts are way more interesting than just a removal spell, but it's a solid card. It does the job. I probably would take Unable to Scream over it, just because I think it's a removal spell. It's like on the same level when you're just pound for pound how much mana you're spending. I would take the monocolored card, but yeah, it's a good card.
Yeah, it's the kind of eat your root vegetables
Yep.
kind of card.
Eat your root vegetables, exactly.
Fear of burning alive.
Ooh, yeah. Fear of Burning Alive is great. This is we've had back-to-back sets now where there's been like a 6 mana semi-conditional Flame Tum Kavu. We've got Fear of Burning Alive and Wix Patrol from Bloomburrow.
And we had Skoa before that.
Skoa too, that's true. Skoa was a lot worse, to be fair.
Well, it was the question of power of the other cards in the set.
Yeah, that also had a thing to do or a part to do with it. But it's interesting we've just had so many sets back to back like that when I don't think we've really had too many cards like that in the past.
It's the reverse Honey Mammoth.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the 6-drop that kills you rather than stabilizes you. But yeah, in any case, the card was great. And it was probably the card that led to the most oh wait, yeah, that also works reactions for me. Like, my opponent having this and then having the Shattered Yard, the 5 mana room that pings unlocked. And it's like, oh, that actually pings a creature each turn.
Oh yeah.
Or having, I don't know if you ever faced 2 Burning Alives at the same time, but that deals a lot of damage.
No,
That's something I went, oh yes, that's pretty good.
and Roller Crusher ride with Delirium.
Yep, Roller Crusher Ride with Fear of Burning Alive is also a very, very good combo. So yeah, it did like just on face value what you think it's gonna do, plus a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay, Unwilling Vessel.
Unwilling Vessel is a card that I was kind of a hater of early on, and I don't love it still, but I think I've come up on it a little bit. The thing with this card is you just want to play it on turn 5, or double spell with it, or turn 4 if you have a 1 mana thing. Like, if you just get like a 1/1 flyer out of the deal and they kill it, that's not so bad, right? But I think a lot of the time I just went like play it on turn 3, hope to untap, play like 2 enchantments next turn when a lot of the time the opponent just has a clean answer to it. So I came up with the card after I figured out how better to play with it. I still don't love it though.
No, and it's still Final Vengeance / Scorching Dragonfire. Even your foolproof plan is not so foolproof against
Yeah,
that.
exactly. I will
Uh,
say one little thing about an unwilling vessel that came up for me in Vegas is that it's worded in a way where it doesn't care about what kind of counters are on it. It'll always count just all of the counters on it. It says when it dies, make an XX equal the number of counters. And I got an opponent pretty bad because they thought it was going to die into like a 3/3, but my vessel had +1/+1 counters on it, so it died into a 6/6. And yeah, just a little thing that might catch you off
nice.
guard. Yeah.
Was it in paper play?
Yes, it was in paper play.
So did you put a 6/6 and they went like reading the card?
Yep, that is exactly what happened. I put a 6/6. I put the 6/6 on the board. They're
It's,
like, hold on a
this is why I
second.
love paper magic, because if that happens, you know you won so much.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling.
And you know that if you would be playing online, they would be shame conceding at that stage.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
they have to finish the game.
They have to just sit there.
Well, I mean, condolences to the opponent. I would have definitely fallen for that. Yeah, I'm not a big fan. I actually actively dislike that card.
Yeah.
It was nothing but a disappointment. And also, like later in the format, maybe even if I try to play it this way, blue white not open, and it's not as good in blue green or blue black. Maybe if you have some kind of a Dimir deck with a couple of those fears of surveillance, not surveillance, the lifelinker.
Yep. I'm drawing a blank on it too now.
Fear of Infinity.
That's it. Yeah,
That's
I'm
the
sure
one.
everybody
Yeah.
knew what we were talking about.
Maybe when you have a couple of those and you have some shenanigans, so sacrificing them, returning them, and amplifying your unwilling vessel. And I thought initially when the form set was released that maybe like a red blue rooms deck it could be also good, but of course that deck didn't pan out to be as good as this. Okay. Last uncommon, Veteran Survivor. 1 mana, 2/1. It has survival at the beginning of your second main phase. If it is tapped, exile up to one target card from a graveyard, and if there are 3 cards exiled with it, it gets +3/+3 and hexproof.
So, how many times did you see this card hexproofed and powered up throughout the format?
I did it.
You did it?
I did it. And not only that, I did it because I attacked like once and opponent didn't have a block. Second time I killed their creature and I cleared the attacks for it because I knew what's coming. Because third turn I played Ethereal Armor on it. I attacked and it got hexproof and was 8/6/7 with hexproof and first strike.
Nice.
And next turn it died.
Wait, how?
They blocked it, and they had the green combat trick that gives indestructibility and death touch.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
And
Well,
I felt so bad because I did so much work in making that creature unkillable, and of course it died the next turn.
Yeah, you felt very warm and safe. Yeah, that's that does suck. Yeah, I played I think one match where my opponent got to do the thing, and I don't think I lost that match still. But any case, this card is fine. It's a if you want like the way I would describe a 1 mana 2/1 a lot of the time that has some minor abilities is if you have a great aggro deck, it's going to be pretty good, but it's not going to make a medium aggro deck better. Right? Like the more cheap stuff you have, the better this kind of card gets, but it's not going to single-handedly make your aggro deck a lot better.
Yeah, I think the problem of the format in general was that there is no mass pump effect kind of that is playable. If there was, that card would have been much better, but also Gremlin Tamer would have been less sustainable.
Yeah.
Okay, we got 2 rares. Both of them are 2 drops. First one is Razorkin Needlehead. Great in Omniscience Draft, by the way.
It's true. Yeah, so this is a double pipped 2-drop, and one of the things that me and Mark, my set review partner, were talking about during the Foundation set review is that there were a lot of double pipped 3-drops. And I think we kind of were logicking out it's probably because Llanowar Elf is going to be in standard from now into the next 5 years. And I think this is just something to look out for going forward. I think they're going to make a lot more cheap cards, 2 and 3 drops that have double pips. So that, the green deck can't just like ramp into a great 3-drop all the time on turn 2. So as a limited player, this ties into just like your mana base, because I saw a lot of decks that I did deck text for where people were green, red, black, red, evenly split on their colors and were playing Needlehead. And I just don't think you can do that. I think you need to be a heavy red deck to play this card, be comfortable with it. And that's just something that's going to come up more often going forward in limited. You're going to have to be like, well, is this card that I can ostensibly cast actually castable on curve? And if Needlekin or Razorhead, that's not it. Razorkin Needlehead, that's it. If that was a single pipped card, I think it'd be really strong. As is, it ended up not being that good.
Yeah. I just see the question in the chat about what are the numbers on the double pip 2-drops. So let's look at it.
Yeah.
If you're on the play and you have 9 of the lands of the you have 9 mountains and you want to play Needlehead, you have 9 mountains, you're on the play. Your chance probability of casting it on turn 2 is 59%.
Not great. Not great
That's
for your aggro deck really wants to be able to cast his cards on time.
coin flip plus.
Yeah.
You go to 12, you have 77, and that's still not great. It's okay, but
Yeah.
it's not great. Like, honestly, the AA 2-drops are hard to cast. They better do something amazing in order to be playable.
Yep.
And I think that's what they, by quite a lot, abandoned that kind of design strategy in general, because of course, in the current set design, if you stumble, it very often ends pretty badly for you. And these cards are going to make people stumble all the time.
Yep.
So I would prefer to see those cards in maybe in sets where you can draft monocolored. And just for the for the information, if you have a 3-drop, that will go up to 66%. You basically have 2/3 probability of casting a 3-drop with double pips on turn 3.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, so it's probably worse numbers than you think. Basically, like I think intuitively it doesn't seem as bad as it actually is. But yeah, like I said, just be careful.
But, even when you play the current Cube has a lot of double pip cards, because double pips are the security measures against those busted cards, not to be allowing to play them in the splashy 5-color decks.
Yep.
And even there, like, I'm playing green. I have Llanowar Elves. I want to have a lot of untapped green sources. I want to probably have 10 of those or so. But sometimes Tyvar can be awkward to be cast on curve, even in those decks, when I have probably like 6 dual lands. And we're talking about regular base, the 9/8 mana base split. It's problematic. And God forbid you play aggro and you have like an 8/8 split aggressive deck with 16 lands.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Still, a card can be solid.
Yeah. It's totally like it's still a fine card. I'm not trying to talk it down too much. Just buyer beware, basically.
And also, like, absolutely awful on defense.
Sure. Yeah. It's just
when you see it, some people focus on removing that creature, but I would focus on making sure that the opponent is put on the defensive, because as soon as they're put on the defensive, that card becomes a liability rather than a valor.
Yep, agree.
And we have the last card, last but not least.
Yeah.
Silent Hall Creeper. 2 mana, 1/1, can't be blocked, enchantment creature. When it deals combat damage, you choose one of the 3 if it hasn't been chosen before, and you either put 2+1/+1 counters on it, draw a card, or turn it into a copy of another creature you control. So, first important question: what is the order? I know that order can vary. What is the default order?
The default order, I believe, is draw a card, put counters, and then copy something.
Correct.
Right. Reason being, you want to get your, make make haste while the sun shines, or I'm getting that wrong, I think, but you know what I mean. Make sure that you can use your card while you have your card around. That's a card that, or a part of the card, and a lot of other cards like this is just like, get your card as soon as you can. Yeah.
That thing, yep.
Yep.
It is a good card.
Very good card. Yeah, this was again referencing my Vegas sealed. This was, I think, the best card in my my sealed deck, my blue-white sealed deck. And yeah, I definitely carried a few games. Card's very strong, and I would absolutely take it here. Like, I don't think anything comes close in this pack to it. We did definitely save the best for last. And yeah, I'd be very happy with that as a first pick.
It's a very neat pack as well. But
Yeah,
as I said
definitely.
in the pre-show, normally I pick the first pack that I open in the 17 lands draft simulator. But this time I had to re-roll a couple of times because the packs were just so atrocious that it didn't give justice to Duskmourn. Because I
Yeah,
opened
for
a couple
sure.
of packs with like menial uncommons and a ley line or something, and no.
Yeah, we don't want to have a ley line pack, and hopefully we don't have ley line packs for few
Well, there is a ley
years.
line in Foundations.
There is a ley line in Foundation, that is true, but that doesn't count because
It's actually playable, no?
exactly, yeah, it's a limited playable one.
Okay, so let's move to our set review.
Let's do it.
I mean, obviously, we won't be reviewing all the cards. We're just going to focus on the cards where we made the biggest mistakes and general trends. So don't worry. Oh, also thanks for the raid to El Gran Boa and Jamie Topples. Oh, I missed that one completely. Thierry, the well-known brain behind such great things as I'm a very good Magic player. I can play any format, and probably we're playing Cube if I know anything about life. Um, I'm not going to check, and I will trust you on word. Cactus, Cactus Sauvage. You know that if you change one letter in your nick, it will be Cactus Sauvage. Um, Set review rules. Okay, so let's go with the set review rules. Obviously, because I'm a data-based streamer, I do my set review using data. And to do that, I try to compare the win rates of the cards between different sets and come to the grades. But the problem is different sets have different win rates, and comparing sets with different win rates can lead you to weird conclusions because, if the set had a slightly lower win rate, good cards are going to be medium in a set with a high win rate. So the solution for me is to normalize the win rates to average of 50%. So if I have two sets, one has a low win rate on average, one has a high win rate on average, I use some mathematical trickery to sort of pull those curves to the same place, where I keep the distribution of the win rates, should be still the same, but I change the average of the win rates. And it looks something like that. I pull both of them to this 50% range. And because of that, I can compare them between each other. And now we are almost up to 5,000 cards in my tier list from 17 lands data. So that's quite a large comparison pool. And based on those 5,000 cards, I looked at how those are distributed, and I arbitrarily assigned what is going to be a different grade. And now starting with A pluses, these are the cards that have a win rate, the normalized win rate when I did the mathematician magic part, of over 60%. These are going to be the A pluses. And only a handful of cards in the last 2 years had the win rate of over 60%. We're talking about Overlord or the Mistmores is actually the only card in this set that fulfilled that criterion. And in Bloomborough, actually not a single card managed to fulfill that criterion. And then we have to go back to the Guide of Souls in MH3 that had over 60% win rate. And like Orcish Bowmasters, Bonehorde Dracosaur. We're talking about like prime things. Like Valgavod's Onslaught didn't make it to that list. So it's a super elite group of cards with the A+. Okay.
Yeah, next up we've got the 57 60% win rate cards. So these are the ones that are going to be very, very good. For example, here, Valgavod's Onslaught. That does make this tier. And if you want a Bloomborough comparison, like we always do, we'll be referencing the last set as well for some context. Season of Loss, the 5-mana sorcery. You can choose to make player sack things, you draw some cards, drain the opponent. All a bunch of good stuff, equally as backbreaking as Valgavod's Onslaught. These cards we consider as A's.
Oh. Okay, A minuses are great cards. Don't get me wrong; they're all good. The win rate is between 55 and 57. In Bloomborough, Manifold Mouse was the A minus. Dissection tools in this set, I put dissection tools on purpose because I still sometimes see it passed,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me wonder.
Yeah, me too. I faced an opponent a few weeks ago that had 3 dissection draws, and yeah, I mean that says to me it's getting past some amount of the time, which is very strange.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
card's great. We've got B pluses here. Win rate 53.5 to 55%. These are excellent cards still, but not quite in that top tier. Optimistic Scavenger as the 1 mana 1/1 Eerie, put a counter on something from this set, and Tender Wild Guide, the 2 mana 2/2 Offspring 2 card that taps to add a mana, or you could tap it to put a counter on something. And these cards, they both put counters on things. That is their
Oh, good.
similarity.
It was very hard to make the. I usually try to put cards that have some sort of similarity joining them. It was very hard because, especially on the B grade, there were very few cards that had a B grade, and I had very little choice about them. So we have the Bs. Win rate of 52.5 to 53.5, and Saver was a B in the last set. This set, Arabella, the abandoned doll, was a B. The 1/3 that drains life when you attack for each creature with power 2 or less. And here I couldn't just find any similarities because there were only 11 Bs in this set, and that's a small number. I don't know why that happened.
Yeah,
There were
interesting.
more B pluses than Bs, as we are going to see very, very soon.
That is kind of interesting. B minuses 51.5 to 52.5% win rate. We've got Glimmerburst as the draw 2 that makes a 1/1 enchantment, and Kitsa Otterball Elite, which is the 1/3 mythic from Loomborough with Vigilance Prowess. It's a looter, copy spells. Really just shows you how good Glimmerburst is, because Kitsa's great, and that's a mythic, and Glimmerburst is just a common.
By the way, and I know that you didn't even try, but this is exactly why I selected Glimmer Burst here, just to show in the parallel with Kitsa how good that card was if someone is still undervaluing it.
Yeah, for sure. Glimmerburst, I think people came up on, but still probably underrated by the average player, I would say.
Then we have C pluses. Win rate of 50.5 to 51.5. We have Hivespine Wolverine from the previous set, the 5 mana 5/4. And when it ETBs, you put a counter on something, or it fights a token, or you destroy an artifact or enchantment. And in this set, we have Overlord of the Hauntwoods, 5 mana enchantment creature, Avatar Horror. It's a 6/5. When it enters or attacks, you create a tapped colorless land token named everywhere that is every basic land type. Why did I select those two?
Are these? I mean, they're both green 5-drops.
Yeah, big chunky down
Big
5
chunky
drops.
big try. Yeah, and the one thing here that's actually kind of interesting, might surprise some people that Overlord is as low as it is. It's kind of the redheaded stepchild of this cycle here. It was a good card. It was a solid one, but not as busted as the other ones in the cycle.
It's just much better suited for constructed.
Yeah.
Because all the things that it does are better in constructed. Fixing for 5 colors, better in constructed.
Mm-hmm.
Providing domain 5, better in constructed.
Yeah.
Ramping, also better in constructed. I think that people in limited usually overvalue how important ramp is, especially ramp from 3 to 5.
Agree with that for sure. Our C's here, we've got win rate 49.25 to 50.5%, getting really granular now. And our 2 cards are Meat Locker / Drowned Diner from Duskmourn, and Eddie Merc Crab from Bloomborough.
What is the commonality?
These both tap things. I guess specifically Meat Locker taps things.
Correct.
Yeah.
The granularity is necessary because if above the 60%, which is quite a wide range, covers maybe 20 cards across 2 years of stuff, probably there's 1,000 cards that fit between the 49.25 and 50.5. It's so granular because so many cards fit in this narrow thing. So differences between those C pluses and Cs are not massive. They are there, and we arbitrarily assign them, but they're not big. While the range for the A's, B's is quite wide.
Yep, totally makes sense.
Okay, C minus, win rate between 48 and 49.25. We have Blooming Blast from Bloomborough, and we have Trial of Agony from Duskmourn. That's, pretty easy common trait.
Yeah, they're both like red uncommons that are not all that particularly good at killing the things you need to kill. That's a common thread between these two.
Yeah, I think that I call this category disappointing red removal. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. That's good.
it's playable, and
Certainly.
probably part of the trials of agony numbers is that it's being put in the wrong decks. I think that in super aggressive decks the card is actually good, but it's also being put into the defensive deck where it's absolutely atrocious, should not be
Yeah,
played probably.
terrible. We've got D pluses here. Unwilling Vessel. Oh, sorry, I should read out the win rates first. 46.75 to 48%. Unwilling Vessel, which we were just talking about a few minutes ago, and Otterball Antics. Actually, kind of interesting putting those side by side. Because I think that if you just asked most players which card is better or was better in its respective format, I think you'd probably say Unwilling Vessel gets the vote for most people.
And indeed, the category for that was disappointing blue uncommons that
Yeah,
promise more
100%.
than they deliver.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we have these. I'm pretty sure you can spot the similarity. We have between 45 and 46.75. We have Malevolent Chandelier and Barkform Harvester.
Yeah, like
What is the
semi.
common? What is the common Magic player for those two cards?
Well, they both have put and target and card from graveyard on bottom of library. Very, very similar lines of text, and for 2 mana too.
Yeah, I ask which Magic player is a commonality between
Oh,
those
which
two.
Magic player? That would be Sam Black. That would
Correct.
be
That is
our
correct. Even though
good.
they're
Yeah,
colorless, it's Sun Black that
yeah.
merges them.
Ooh, and then we got D minuses here. Win rate 42 to 45%. Curse Recording, which is a card I have a soft spot for, and Stocking the Pantry from Bloomborough. So kind of build arounds that are not Fs, but do need quite a bit to be supported.
Yeah, and indeed, the category that was in common was cards that I have soft spot for, but are
Nice, great.
not wildly successful. And I had trophies with both of them, so
Mm-hmm.
it can be done. But it needs to be done responsibly, something I definitely did not.
Absolutely.
I'm not capable of. And we have the Fs. These are the under 42% cards that you should probably never play. Hoarder's Overflow and Doomsday Excruciator. And there were so few of those that, I didn't have a selection for similarity.
Yep.
I
No,
guess
makes
bad
sense.
card draw engines is the common theme.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, I've lost to both these cards, so I guess that's a similarity.
I almost lost to a reanimated Doomsday Excruciator.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is how the grading scale looks like. So as I said, those very granular things are so granular because there is 16% of all the cards in multiple formats that fit in this very narrow bracket of like 1.25 percentage points, while A's that have 3% range, there's only like 2% of cards in that. But it's neatly distributed across all sets, and it's fairly similar when you look only at the Duskmourn cards. However, as I said, there's more B pluses than both Bs and B minuses, which is a bit of a surprise for the set.
Yeah.
It seems to me that there were so many pushed signposts and commons that made it to B plus, and there was just not much in between, and very few commons made it to the B range, which I think is contributing to it. We didn't see things like Saver. There was a clear B from Bloomborough, and
Right.
I think also decks that were relying solely on commons were not successful in this set. Something that tripped me up in the early format. But we have a bit of more of this, medium C plus, C level cards, C minus even. But we have quite fewer D minuses. The Fs are roughly the same numbers, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something I'm controlling for because of the promise that Mark Rosewaters gave us that there will be fewer commons, but more of them will be playable. So I looked at what percentage of cards of D plus and lower grade were of each rarity. And in the first couple of sets where the play boosters were released, MKM, OTJ, MH3, it was true that there was few the fraction of commons among the Ds and below was pretty low, especially in MH3. Only like across all the cards with the grade D plus or lower, only 14% were commons, while before that was more like 40%, not 14. But in Bloomborough and in Duskmourn, it returned to sort of the pre-play booster kind of levels, which makes me think that slowly but surely these promises are not kept. And It is a worrying trend for me because I think that if we are getting the play boosters, commons have to deliver because there's fewer of them. They are at lower frequency in the pack than they used to be before. It deserves to be slightly boosted.
Yeah, it's definitely. I agree. It has definitely felt like the last a couple sets this year did do well in that promise, but definitely didn't feel like it was consistent throughout the year. So yeah, we'll see what 2025 has to offer in that department.
Mm. Also, in Bloomborough, okay, there were just very few Ds in general, and that was something that was a trend. But in this set, the fraction of the D plus or worse cards in the set was back to the averages of around 35%. In
Right.
Bloomborough, it was 25. So this set was double offender in that term, that there was normal amount of Ds and lower, and also quite a lot of them were commons. So design team, make better commons. Don't make me another 4-mana 3/3 Death Toucher in black because no one cares about
Yeah,
that card.
please. We don't need that.
I mean, that card is such an like. There's like a card should be for someone. For whom is that card made?
Yeah, that was I think probably the one card as I was looking for the card file for the first time that I just kind of I'm sure I just like out loud was just like why like like
Yeah.
what is that doing here?
But why?
But why? Yeah, exactly. Like
It was also the only F at the lower rarity. Like
yeah,
there were a
that makes
couple of
sense.
Fs in in high rarities, and you expect that because they are weird cards that are for constructed or some commander shenanigans. But a common at an F is a disappointment in this particular style. Okay, so here is the final comparison of our grades, how we distributed them, and how reality looks compared to what we did. And we did it again, Alex. We missed the average. As you can
Ooh.
see, the distribution of our grades has the average at somewhere at around C plus, or in Alex's case, maybe even C. But the sort of median for the reality is around C minus. So we overhit slightly the average power of the set. That's
Yeah, and I
unfortunate.
think we often this is a trend that often happens, and I think like you mentioned, maybe even on the Bloomborough version of this podcast episode, it's not necessarily that we're like systematically ranking all cards like we're overestimating how good the cards will be, but we're kind of I think there's a tendency to give cards the benefit of the doubt in preview season, right? Like if this works out, if this kind of archetype works out, this card can't will be about this. And of course not everything can work out to be as good as the best thing, and you get exactly that, like C's that are actually C minuses and C pluses that are actually C minuses or C's.
Yeah, and in the end, I think did a pretty good job in general in terms of hitting those marks, because it is true that we missed the average, but actually it's misses consisting of a lot of small tiny misses by half a grade. And as
Right.
I told you, those grades have a very narrow win rate. They are
Right.
like difference of sometimes like 0.2 percentage points. That's an acceptable thing to happen. We did quite decently on the outsides. Like we have a decent approximation of both the top end and the super low rate. So in the middle, these things are really close, and there we don't miss as much.
Good.
Oh, that was Bloomborough. Damn it! But it's the same graph as you see.
Oh, good, excellent. Yeah.
That's why I said it's the
worried.
same thing as in the Bloomborough.
Great.
But yeah, again, we have our average at between C plus and C, and the average is at C minus for the reality. Read the title, Pavo, please. And we did a good job of those outside from A plus to B plus and from D minus to F, where we
Nice.
have a much better evaluation of how powerful the cards are because the resolution is wider, so we have a bigger margin of error there for ourselves.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, and this is our performance in Bloomborough. You got 76 cards absolutely right. I got 55. And then I missed 51. I underrated, 57 I overrated, and you did 36 underrated and 70 overrated. So roughly similar in terms of missing, but you have a slightly tendency to overrate that was higher than mine. And I was more like in central in the middle of this distribution, so I had roughly the same misses on both sides. And we see very similar picture in this set. It's really very similar, I have to say.
Yeah.
We hit it quite. We hit it. I hit a bit more, 72, 73. So we're basically dead even in terms of getting cards exactly right.
Nice.
You overhit 80 cards. I overhit 66. You underhit only 23, and I underhit 48. So again, you
Interesting.
have this disproportion that you tend to overhit by one grade. I tend to either over or underhit the cards because I'm trying things or
Interesting.
whatever.
Yeah.
But good news, you underhit one card by 5 grades, and then it's like by 3. So you gave it C, it was a B. And in terms of overhitting, you overhit one card by 6 grades, so by 2 letter grades, 2 whole letter grades. And then I did 6 by 5, and you did 3 cards by 5. So you had maybe like 5 misses. I had 6 bigger misses.
Yeah.
This 5 is the criterion when I start thinking that, okay, that was a relatively large miss. And the rest of the cards fit quite neatly between like 1-2 grades. So pretty good result for us, I would say. Yeah, these are the cards that you missed by 5 or more grades.
I see. Yeah, I was wondering what this was going to be. What the I assumed it would have been a rare that I missed by 5 grades. And yeah, Mind Skinner. Mind Skinner is a card that I think it wasn't even the mana cost that really dissuaded me. I kind of just figured that it would be too punishing to mill your opponent for 10 cards before actually killing them. Like, I guess I assumed that more decks would care about Delirium than they actually did, or reanimating than they actually did. And it was just too big of a downside to get that first hit in and then, not actually kill them on the spot. Turned out to be that wasn't the case, because if they didn't have a removal spell for Mind Scanner, they just lost in a hit or two, and that was good enough.
Yeah, and sometimes, like a blue-green deck, you hit them once and you didn't mill them, but they had very big problems with winning that game because they couldn't play half of the cards in their hand because Manifest
Totally.
would have milled them out.
Yeah. And one thing, too, that I think is a little bit, people kind of forget about the Mind Skinner, because I forgot this until it just kind of happened to me, is it doesn't just count all your, or just itself. It counts your other creatures, too. So it kind of has a hasty effect where
Yeah.
you can kill them in, the Mind Skinner only has to attack maybe once to actually kill them, because the first time you kill them, maybe you ding in with a flyer, you mill them for, 4 or 5 or something.
You can also do it with the direct damage.
Yep. Yeah, that totally.
Fear of Burning Alive that works.
Oh, wow.
Although
Yeah,
probably
I
you don't
didn't
want
think about
to
that.
put those two in the same deck though.
Yeah,
But,
that would be a little strange.
okay, you gave it an F. I gave it a C minus. So the final grade for it was a C.
Okay, yeah, that makes good sense.
Another card that you missed by 5 grades is Enduring Courage.
Yeah.
But this is the card that you missed in the obviously opposite direction. You didn't. It's not an A plus 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 plus. So clearly we both overestimated how good the card was. You gave it an A minus. I gave it a B, and it was a C in the end. So why do you think that card was not so good?
Yeah, I think it just comes down to the fact that when you play it, like, when I am facing an aggressive deck, and I get even like one little smidgen of breathing room against them, I feel pretty good. I feel a lot better about winning that game if they compared to if they had played just like heavy hitter, removal spell, like anything that is setting you up for a better late game in an aggro deck, but doesn't affect you immediately right now, is probably going to play out a little bit worse than you think. And so this, really came up with this card where most of the time, like, I just want you to imagine playing against Enduring Courage, against, an aggressive deck. Would you prefer them to play Enduring Courage against you on turn 4 when you've been getting beaten down and don't have good blocks, or Most Valuable Slayer that makes immediately makes it even worse blocks and pushes more damage? Slayer is going to be better most of the time. So I think that Courage, just being a 4-mana 3/3, that then makes your future attacks better. I think that is more punishing and worse than it might seem to a lot of people on face value.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And also, like, how often you play it out and you just get again, Final Vengeance / Scorching Dragonfire. And another reason why those cards are so good, because these cards exactly is if you don't have them, that courage will become a problem eventually.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's actually that card is pretty good in the cube. Because if you're playing like some controlling deck in the cube, there's not so much exile removal in the cube.
Right.
And that card becomes an active problem for control decks because what do? You kill it, and then you
Yeah.
can't ever
Then what?
attack. You always need to have untapped removal or counter spell. It is a liability if you play against it.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, but here, because of those couple of exile removals that are carefully distributed across the colors, because I think almost every color could neutralize it. Blue could
Yeah.
have unable to speak. The white has exorcism, green has break the door, black has final vengeance, and red has scorching dragonfire.
Yeah, what else just has trapped in the screen, right? Like just
Yeah,
that
yeah,
works too.
yeah. That's true. Anyway, oh yeah, trapped in the screen, such a banger. Another card we have Nashi, Searcher in the Dark. You gave it a B plus, I gave it a C plus, and it turned out to be a D plus. That's
Yeah,
the card that you missed by 6 grades, by the way.
yeah, I do think this one is probably slightly overrating the card in general, but is dragged down a lot by blue black being one of the lesser performing decks for 17 lands players. Like this card, when you just read it, like it's a 2-mana 2/2 menace that either grows or draws cards. Like it can't
Okay,
be that bad, you know?
if that would
So
be white blue, easily would be a B plus.
yeah, much better card there.
It's just like it's so against the plan for the mirror. Oh, now I have to attack with this thing. I don't want to attack. I want to protect my life total.
Yep. Yep. For sure.
Oh, and then a lot of your cards that you missed by 5 grades or 4 grades as lands. You gave like
Mm.
absurdly high grades to the lands. You gave them all Bs and B minuses, and they turned out to be more on the C level. And it's something
Yeah.
that is typical for the data, and it's an artifact. Lands cannot improve the win rate by that much.
Right. Yeah. They're often more like indicative of what the good decks are. Like the blue white land will be performing better than the white black land, for
Yeah.
example, right? And yeah, like I think that if you're directly mapping like my grades onto some sort of pick order, yeah, it doesn't make sense, right? You're never gonna like take a land at the level you take a B level good spell. Unless you really need to land. At least early on, you're not going to do that. But I think in a deck that say your deck is already got 23 good playables and you just want to make your mana base better, or you need the lands to support splashing, you're gonna want to value the lands at about the level that a B level spell would be if your deck is kind of already filled in. So yeah, it's definitely going to come out in the wash and the data as overrepresented. Or sorry, like what my grade is not going to look as good compared to what the actual numbers are, because my grade is more reflection of where I think you should take them when you need them in the draft.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Gloom Lake version in the end had a D plus because the mirror was not so great.
Mm-hmm.
That's as simple as it gets. Also, those lands will be slightly more often than other cards in splash decks, which plays a role as well.
Right.
Splash decks usually have a slightly lower win rate in general. Right, my misses. I gave it a C plus. You gave it a C. It's the chart foyer and warped space. Double Room does a lot of weird things. We gave them probably the safe C.
Yep.
So that we think, okay, it will be sometimes great, but sometimes bad. It's not an F, but it's a D minus. In the end, it was not as powerful as we thought maybe it will be.
Yeah, I
But
think this one is you're right. Probably like not as good as we might have thought, but also it's put in the wrong decks. Like this is not an aggro card. It's a red card, but it's not you never want to put this in your like white red deck, maybe not even most of your red green decks, but I've had like slower decks that it's been pretty good in. So yeah, a little bit of a mix of the two. Not as good as we might have expected, but also is put in a lot of wrong decks, I think.
it's the Grenzo at home.
Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, it's got a lot of the same words: exile, pay 0.
Then we have again. I missed it by slightly more than you, so you managed to squeeze out a 4 grade miss on that one. Hedger Shredder. I gave it a B. You gave it a B minus. In the end, was a D plus. It is a disappointment. The card doesn't look so bad.
No, it doesn't look so bad. I think it's probably a bit of the rare tax, like a lot of the cards here. Also, it being taken a little higher than it probably ought to be once people kind of actually, or once we kind of actually understood how good the card was. I think that vehicles are always tricky because I think they walk this really fine line between being really good or pretty bad. Because as I've played more and more with them in limited, it's kind of they've kind of fallen more towards the side of equipment where I go, unless they're really good, I'm probably not that interested in them because they inherently just need another card to work, right? So yeah, I think it's a solid card. It's a solid vehicle, but it's probably a little overrated, and I think both of us probably overrated it slightly just looking at it.
Well, but crew one for a 5/5 seems like a decent deal in
It
general.
does, yeah, it's appealing.
But it's just not. And also, like I think the fact that it was probably predominantly played in white green plays a role. That was
Yeah.
turned out to be a junker. And also, I think that in some green decks, it actively hampers your chance of getting delirium by not allowing you to put lands in your graveyard
Yes, absolutely.
easily.
I actually encountered that many times. Not for me because I didn't play the card too much, but for my opponents, yeah, that I'm sure wanted to mill that land instead of put it on the battlefield.
Sag. Another miss that I had, baseball bat. I gave it a B minus. You gave it a C, cunningly, and turned out to be a D. A
Yeah,
disappointment, but it's linked to the impossibility of designing this particular type of an archetype, and especially giving two signpost uncommons that need that archetype to be working. And
yeah.
by the way, Shrewd Storyteller, I have the same kind of thing, and
Yep.
it's identical for those two cards. You gave it a C, I gave it a B minus. It was a D. Same with Shrewd Storyteller. You gave it a C, I gave it a B minus. Turned out to be a D.
Yeah.
Although A level flavor text.
All his tales are cautionary. That is good flavor text. I actually hadn't
It
read
is
that
a. It
before.
is a. It's not too much on the nose. It's just
No.
the right amount of joke. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
they didn't put something shrewd storyteller's last words. They say that on every single card, every single horror set. They've got to include that one in there
I
somewhere.
mean, that would have been not so bad. The end.
Yeah,
Shrewd
the
storyteller's last words.
that's pretty good too. Yeah, yeah. Consider a job writing flavor texts, I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes. Too soon. Um. Okay. Another card that I have, and
Mm,
I'm very sad about it. I gave it a B plus because I was so hopeful for that card because it looks so sweet, and I'm really hoping that in some kind of artisan cube, this is going to be good. Maybe that artisan. Which one is the chromatic cube? The one with synergies.
Tinkerer's
Tinker,
cube.
Tinker.
Yeah.
I really hope that they're going to make something about it because that card is sweet, has sweet art, and looks like something that I would have fun playing around with. And it's the Jolly Balloon Man. 1/4 haste for 1 mana and tap. It creates a token that is a copy of another target creature you control, except it's a 1/1 red balloon creature in addition to other colors and types. It has flying and haste. Sacrifice it at the end of next step. I played it a couple of times, and it was always sweet when it hit the board, and then they instantly killed it most of the time because you have to kill it because it's too good.
Yeah, it's definitely a solid one. I think that again, this one probably honestly was another victim of people playing it in the wrong decks. Like it's a red white card, but you don't really want it in your red white aggro decks that often.
No, you want to copy your centipedes. That's what you want to be doing.
Yeah, what I mean, why not? Drawing a land every turn seems great. But yeah, no, cool card. I agree.
But a C minus in terms of the grade.
Yeah, makes sense.
Far cry from the RBs that we gave it. And one that I missed by 5+ grades. Overlord of the Hauntwoods. I told you the very smart description why that card is a C, but I gave it an A, obviously. So there you go. It was a C plus in the end.
Nice.
You gave it a B for people listening, so that
Yep.
I don't take away your credit where it's due.
No, no, no. I mean, I was
Yeah.
wrong too by 2 points, so
But 2 points is not 5.
that's true.
All right, so these are our absolute performances in Blueborough. And by absolute, I mean it doesn't matter which way we missed. I count it as a miss. So if we missed by one by overrating it, I count this as a miss by one. If we underrated, I counted this as a one, and then I calculate the average of those two. It just shows how far from the actual grade were we on average.
Yep.
And in commons, we are like in Blueborough, we were by 1 grade off. And uncommons, you were by 1.2, I was by 1.6. And in rare mythics, you were by 1.4, I was by 1.6. So quite similar with slight advantage for you. How do you think
Yeah.
it looks like in Duskmourn?
I think on average, I'm going to speak to my own first year quickly. I think I probably did a little bit worse in this set, if I were to guess.
Okay, let's look. A little bit, but
A
not that
little
much.
bit, yeah, a little bit indeed.
And
And
I did.
I'm only saying that because it's a more complex set with just like more opportunities to assume wrong things, basically.
I did a little bit better, and I'm happy about it.
Nice, yeah, that's great.
So you were 1.2 missing the commons by 1.2. I was at 0.9. Uncommons 1.1 for you and 1.3 for me. So you were better in evaluating the uncommons. And rares we missed by 1.7, 1.5. So quite similar results, to be fair.
Yeah, I can deal
You
with
had a
that.
much bigger miss at the rares in this set.
Yeah, that's fair.
But you keep in mind that a lot of your misses was by criminally overvaluing the lands. You probably, like, if I would
True.
exclude lands from that analysis, which I didn't, so that I can feel better about myself, you would have probably have a better prediction. So
Good to
lessons
know.
learned.
Good to know.
Don't give too high grades to lands because they won't have ever super high grades as a card,
Yeah, that's true.
unless they're like functional lands that have, like, the fixing lands will never be super good.
Yep.
If they have an effect that you can sacrifice them for, then they can be actually high win rate cards. And here we look at the non-absolute rate. So there is a difference. If we overrate something by 1 and then underrate the other card by -1, it will even out to 0, basically. So undervalue is minus and undervalue is minus, overvalue is plus. And when we look at this for Bloomborough, I was almost bang on for the commons, and you had like missed by 0.6. Uncommons, you were missing by 0.5. I was missing by 0.7. And rares, you were missing by 0.58, and I was missing by 0.5. So close, within one pick on average from the from the actual score. How do you think we did this time?
Yeah, again, I'm gonna guess that I did a little bit worse. Just kind of the same logic as last time, but we'll see.
A smidgen worse.
Smidgen, yeah, just
Yeah.
like ever so slightly. And yeah, the graphs, the shapes look pretty similar here, as
Yeah,
far as like what.
and yeah.
Yeah,
Again, like a large chunk of the rare misses are the verges, large chunk of the common misses are the common lands.
right. Okay.
Uncommons are fair and square because there were no uncommon lands here. But you missed by 0.8 roughly on the commons and uncommons. I missed by 0.2 for commons, 0.6 by uncommons. And rares mythic, we were like 1.1, 0.9 roughly miss. And all of them are in the overrated direction. And we know that because we saw that from the curve that I showed before. Where is that curve? Oh, it was before the explanation of the value graphs. Yeah, I'm not gonna go that.
Way
Come
back there
on.
somewhere.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we saw that. There you go. We saw that we were a bit overrating compared to the actual real data. Those curves have different average.
Yeah, totally.
In the middle somewhere. Okay, and the last comparison is looking at colors and multicolor cards. And in Bloomborough, we overrated almost across the board. I only was the only one who undervalued black in Bloomborough, and but it was close. We had very small misses on the blue, very small misses on the black, quite good guesses on the green as well. Slightly worse on the red. We both overrated red by quite a lot in
Yeah.
Bloomborough. And also multicolor, but multicolor cards are hard to evaluate in general because you have to guess if the color pair is a hit or a miss from the design team. So how do you think we did this time?
I think pretty accurate, I would say, for this. Like I think that I am comparing this to Bloomborough and just trying to remember how I thought about Bloomborough. And I feel like I was a bit just less confident about how good the gold cards were and the archetypes. I think here it was a little more clear.
I know that last time when we recorded, we You definitely mentioned that we overshot on the red, and you were absolutely right.
Yeah.
Is there any color you think we overshot this time?
It's a good question. Yeah, sorry, that was specifically speaking about multicolor. Um, I think maybe, hmm, not. I don't think green. I don't think white. Maybe white. White might be the color. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we didn't overshoot on a single color.
By the way, you were spot on blue.
Oh, nice. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Zero
Okay.
point zero zero. You're
Great.
exactly
Excellent.
your average grade was exactly as it should be. So blue, we both got quite okay. I undervalued it actually by 0.25. White was decent, and honestly, white, black, and red we did more or less the same, around 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. Biggest miss we had was overvaluing green by like 1 grade.
I see. Okay. By quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And multicolor, we did roughly 1.21 miss, which is not terrible. It is slightly, I think, worse than it is for the Bloomborough, but we didn't have a color that we miss as much as we did miss the red in the Bloomborough. So some positives, some negatives. Let's even those out.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. That's it.
Nice.
That's the whole comparison. So, what are your final thoughts on the Bloomborough before we go to the acknowledgements?
Well, on
Not
Bloomberg.
Bloom, Duskmourn.
Yeah, on Duskmourn, yeah. It was a great set. It's we were talking a little bit before we recorded. I think we both have it as the best set of the year, mind you. This set wasn't
So
the
far.
stiffest. Yeah, so far, Foundation. You never know, Foundations. Um, this year was not, I think, the a golden year in limited's history. I think it was good. It's probably top 5, 6, 7 in limited's history, but just compared to the other sets we've had in the 2013 or 2023 and 2022, I think it probably was a little bit worse than those years. Those are kind of finding their footing in this new play booster era. But Duskmourn was great, and I hope that is a it's indicative of where they're going with this after they've kind of had a few goes at the play boosters for the earlier sets this year.
So, what do you think? What do you think is the takeaway for the evaluation of the next set?
Yeah, I mean, well, number one, I think the thing it's ringing in my head right now is just the land thing you said. I will probably rate them slightly lower, just as far as it's like my general gradings for the lands. I think are given that where and when and why to take a land, and I think I should probably bump that down for at least for our purposes here, because like you said, it's very aggregate, um, dependent.
Yeah, play the system, obviously.
Yeah, play the system, exactly. That's what I'm trying to do. But for real, I do think that probably the other thing, and it's definitely a little bit smaller. It is just maybe being like a little bit harsher going forward on the cards. And I actually think as I was grading foundations, I think I noted like giving a lot of D's, giving a lot of C minuses might be the nature of the set. But I also think it was a little bit the nature of these reviews and being like, yeah, often we overrate things just a little bit, or at least I do, quite often.
And we can repeat that exact argument next time when we're going to be talking about foundations. And we also overshoot that set by 1 grade on every common. But
yeah, exactly.
Until then, I will have to be content with watching Alex stream and listening to his podcast. Do you have anything to plug before you go?
Do I need to play before I go? No, I don't think so. I mean, the YouTube channel is one thing I would plug. That is not, nothing extremely new and pressing going on over there. But we are almost at 10K subs. So if you are a watcher, a listener of my content generally, a follow and a sub over there is always very appreciated. But for the most part, I think I'm just doing the same old, same old. We're weekly podcasts, YouTube videos, streaming. Yeah, that's all still going on. So lots of places to consume Alex content if you so choose to.
And as you should, because it's a good content, as I already said. And I mean, I'm consuming it. I don't know if that's a valuable endorsement or not, but
I count it. Yeah, for
worth
sure.
knowing. Worth knowing. Okay, well, Alex, I'll see you next time. Probably around early January. No, when does the vroom vroom car set come out?
Yeah, I think January. So we're gonna probably see each other like late January. Yeah.
Yeah, well, after Christmas, basically. So
Yeah.
Merry Christmas to you, Alex.
Indeed. Merry Christmas.
And enjoy the snow, which I won't see for the foreseeable future. And I would like to also thanks to, of course, 17 Lands, because without them, we wouldn't have a good tier system based on data. And fake Jake Brown, who is amazing, helpful, useful. Hire that person if you can, because he's doing miracles to my podcast in the form of releasing it. So thanks to him, as always. And with that, I'll see you next week, and we will be probably talking about foundations already, and at least some form of primer. Good luck on the per releases, and see you soon, Alex.
All right.
Bye
See you
bye.
later. Bye, everybody.